This recording is meant to give you some information about the web project that you'll be working on for the rest of this semester. You can get access to information about the web project by going to my lecture notes and then under the homework, scrolling down, and you'll find web project description, a video showing the interactions with the web interface. So this, if you ever have a question about how your interface should look or how it should react to some user interaction, please watch that video. And then there are 4 assignments: Web Project 1, Web Project 2, 3, and 4 that you will be submitting throughout the rest of the semester. As I said, I already have a video that shows what the web interface looks like. This video is going to talk about what information is being gathered by that website, so you kind of have a feel for the information flow, and it's also going to be going over the database relations that are used in the web project. So the web project is having you collect information that we use in doing ABET assessment. ABET is an engineering accreditation organization that accredits undergraduate engineering programs. Here in the EECS department, it accredits our computer science, computer engineering, and electrical engineering programs. You can actually, so ABET requires us to post our what are called student learning outcomes, and you can get that by going to our department's ABET goals page, and you can easily Google EECS ABET goals and you should get it. And ABET requires that we publish some educational objectives that we want all of our majors to be able to achieve on graduation, and then more specific and detailed student outcomes, which at this point ABET mandates. There's a separate set of student outcomes for the computer engineering and electrical engineering majors and for the computer science majors, but they have the same general theme. So these student learning outcomes are outcomes we want you to achieve by the time you graduate. So many of you are CS students, so let's take a look at some of them. Analyze a complex computing problem and apply principles of computing and other relevant disciplines to identify solutions. So we want you, given a problem like you get on a programming assignment, we want you to be able to figure out, given what you've learned in our various core courses, how to solve the problem. And then related to that is design a solution given a set of computing requirements. So you may be given some restrictions on your solution, and you should be able to design within those restrictions. Then communicate effectively, recognize your professional responsibilities and act ethically, function effectively as a member of a team, and be able to apply computer science theory and software development fundamentals to produce computing-based solutions. So ABET, every 6 years it comes and it evaluates our program in order to reaccredit it. And at that time, one of the things they're interested in is how well our students are achieving these 6 outcomes, and for the other 2 programs, how they're achieving the 7 outcomes, and the process that we're using to assess how well our students achieve these outcomes. So what we do is every semester we identify some courses like CS 365, 302, 360 that are going to be used to assess some subset of these outcomes. We don't assess all 6 outcomes each semester. We actually divide them into what are called hard and soft skills. So soft skills are the communication and ethics and functioning on a team. The hard skills are the remaining set of skills. And so we have these courses assess the how well the students are doing on the outcomes. And in the past, we sent 3 documents to the faculty. And if you go to our web project description, it talks about this description of the data collection process. So as an example, the first thing we do is we used to have a spreadsheet that we would send to the faculty. And that spreadsheet would have the 3 performance levels that we associate with each of the student outcomes. Does not meet expectations, meets expectations, and exceeds expectations. And it would have the student outcomes being assessed in that course. And the professor would type in how many students did not meet expectations, met expectations, and exceeded expectations. And you can see over here, there was a total. And they'd send us this spreadsheet, and we'd try to enter the information in some files and do some processing on them. So in order to figure out how many students did not meet, and exceeds, they have to be assessed using some assessment materials. So for each outcome, we wanted the professor to give us what we call an assessment plan. So now I'm bringing up the assessment plan for CS402. And here was the assessment plan for outcome 2, which was design a computing solution. And it was using 2 assessments. So the preliminary design document, the design component was 25% of the assessment, and the final design document, its design component was 75%. And the weights have to add up to 100%. And the way that most professors determine whether you exceed, meet, or do not meet expectations is they take your score, compute a weighted average, so probably 25% of your score for the preliminary design plus 75% of your score for your final design. And then they would have ranges, maybe 90 to 100 exceeds expectations, 70 to 90 meets, less than 70 does not meet. So this was the second document they would send us. The third document was something we call the narrative summary. And the narrative summary, as you will see, is for each outcome, it shows us the student's strengths, weaknesses, and suggested actions to remedy the student weaknesses. So for that design based outcome in CS402 for that semester, you can see the instructor listed 2 strengths. They also listed 2 weaknesses. And then they had 3 suggested actions for how those weaknesses could be addressed. And the instructors would send us this third document. And again, what we would have to do is take the information from these 3 documents that we received, the spreadsheet that showed the results, the 2 documents with the assessment plan and the narrative summary. We would have to manually move that information to different files and then perform manipulations on it. And not only was it tedious to do it manually, but we were getting this, the narrative summaries and the assessment plans back in different forms. Some people sent us plain text files, some people sent us PDFs, some people sent us Microsoft Word documents, some people sent us OpenOffice documents. It was all over the place. And therefore, I was the assessment czar at the time. I found that to be tedious, so I developed the ABET assessment site that we now use that allows the faculty to enter the information directly into the website, and then that information is put into a database, and from that database we're able to generate reports. For this class, all you're doing is allowing an instructor to sign in and collect the information. You're not worried about the report generation, nor are you worried about the administrative part where we add courses, add sections, add instructions, so on and so forth. So you're just doing a portion of that website. Before you go further, if you haven't already looked at the video for how the website operates, I would suggest that you pause this video now and look at how the website operates, simply because if you haven't looked at how the website operates, it may be a little hard to follow the next discussion about the database relations. So the database relations, I've defined them for you. You're going to write the data definition language for them. You're going to create an entity relationship diagram for us, and you're going to write some queries that will be initially in SQL, but eventually you'll convert them to PHP scripts that you'll be able to use with your website. So here's a quick explanation of the different relations. There's an instructors relation and contains information about the instructors, and you'll be expected to store their password as an encrypted hash string, and that can be generated using the MySQL function password. So if you just pass in the password string to this function, it will return an encrypted hash string. And we have provided you with some sample data, and you can see in this sample data that in fact what you're storing into the database for the password is an encrypted hash string. Okay, so then there's a relation that contains all the courses that we use for assessment, one that lists the sections of those courses, and it has the semester and year they were offered, the instructor who taught them, the course, and then a section ID that's unique. And this is your classic weak strong entity relationship. The strong entity is courses, the weak entity is sections. Then we have a relation that lists the outcomes that we are assessing. So those are the student outcomes you saw on that ABET web page. The outcome ID is typically 1 through 6 for CS, 1 through 7 for our engineering majors, the outcome description, and then the major that outcome is associated with. And the description is the description you see for that student learning outcome on our EECS webpage. Then we have relations that represent the information being collected. So the outcome results is what comes from what used to be the spreadsheet. And each row contains the number of students that performed at that performance level for that major and that outcome. We wanted the website to be flexible and accommodate varying numbers of performance levels, because periodically ABET either might change something, causing us to change the number of performance levels, or they might mandate something. So we didn't want to just have 3 columns for performance levels. Instead, we said there'll be 1 row per performance level. So to report the 3 performance levels requires 3 tuples. and that's reported in the outcome results. Then assessments contain the assessment plans that are provided by the instructors, and each tuple corresponds to one assessment used for one outcome in a section of a course. Then the narratives corresponds to the information we collect with the narrative summaries. Each tuple corresponds to one assessed outcome in a section and has the strengths, weaknesses, and actions for that particular outcome. Then we have a relation that keeps track of our performance levels and the description associated with them. You'll simply be using performance levels 1, 2, and 3 and the descriptions that you saw earlier for those performance levels. And then finally, there is a course outcome mapping relation, which each semester indicates which courses are assessing which outcomes. So in that web interface, you remember on the left-hand side, you had this drop-down menu that allowed you to select the courses associated with an instructor and the section that they were teaching. And then that section had some outcomes it was assessing. And you want to list them on the left-hand side. This course outcome mapping is what you need to use in order to identify the outcomes that the instructor is assessing. You may be tempted to try to use instead this outcome results relation, because you can see it has a section ID and it has a outcome ID. But the problem is, before the instructor has entered information for the course or for that section, there's no information in the outcome results for that section, and therefore you won't be able to locate the outcomes assessed by that section in outcome results. So you are going to have to use this course outcome mapping to identify the outcomes that are being assessed by a section. And yes, you don't see a section ID in this relation. You're going to have to figure out how to obtain for a certain section the outcomes that it is assessing based on this relation that you see right here. Okay, so that, and then again, if you're looking for sample information, sample data, you can find it right here at sampledata.sql, and there's sample data. We expect you to augment this data with your own data. So please don't just assume that this somehow is a complete set. You need to add to it and test it on your own. But this should be a nice guide when you are creating the data definition language that sets up the relations. That concludes the video. If you have questions, feel free to contact me, especially via Piazza, so that other students can see your questions as well.